Hey, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Grant Info session. My name is Anne. I'm the Sustainability Manager, and today I'm joined by Leslie Burke from the Contract Supply Chain Management, and she's part of the Green Grant Committee as well. So, Leslie, maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit more.
That is correct. Yes, I've been involved in Green Grant. Oh my goodness. Going back to probably 2008, I would say. So yeah, I've seen a lot of the different Green Grant applications come through, and I know some of the pitfalls that occur that cause grants not to be funded. So I'm glad to be here today to help anybody who's interested in putting one get one in that will hopefully be successful.
Thank you, Leslie. Okay, uh, all right. So, just a background of the Green Grant Program. So it started in 2009 through a levy on parking fees. So if you ever park, part of that parking ticket goes towards the Green Grants. So it's going towards a good cause. To date, 138 proposals have been funded. And this is not probably the most current dollar figure, but since the time the template was made, I don't know, I think it was in maybe 15 or something, $150,000 has been funded. And the elevator pitches and info sessions were introduced to ensure the success of applications because, as Leslie mentioned, there was a lot of pitfalls with a lot of applications, and we want to make sure that applicants are as successful as possible in the application itself, but also executing the project. And we have two intakes. So this is the fall intake right now, and then we have another one in the winter semester, and that one will be announced in sometime in February. And you receive up to $5,000 to fund your sustainability projects. It could be more than that, but that will have to be discussed with the committee. And there has to be justification for any project that is over that dollar figure. And this is for projects starting on or after January 2nd, 2025. So who can apply? Anybody from the UNBC community can apply. This includes students, so undergraduate, graduate, postdoctoral fellows, staff, faculty, student-led organizations, and if you're part of a campus-based organization such as Northern Women's Center or PG PERG that do not fall under these categories. All right, so for the application process, first, you're going to submit a preliminary proposal, and all complete applications are accepted to go to the next stage, which is the elevator pitches. So here you'll have up to 3 minutes to pitch your idea to the Green Grant Committee. Basically, going to provide a very brief summary of your project, and then you're going to receive feedback from the committee on how you can improve your application for its final submission. So that's the third stage, which is the final proposal. Once you submit the final proposal, then the funding decisions will be made in early December 2024.
And maybe if I could just interject. So the point of today's information session, which is our inaugural one, we're trying to help the second step at the elevator pitches. So when you do your pitch, there's even less feedback that's needed from the committee. You've already addressed some of the hurdles that we frequently face at the elevator pitch stage. So that's kind of where we thought, well, maybe if we do this information session, we can get rid of some of the frequent things we see.
Yes, thanks, Leslie. Okay, so what do we evaluate your proposal on? So we look at whether or not your proposal addresses some of the recommendations of the UNBC Green Strategy that's on the website. So please check it out. We also look at whether or not you incorporate any elements of public education and raise awareness about sustainability across the UNBC campus community. We look at the feasibility, so whether or not, with the funding that you ask for, are you actually able to execute this project with funding you have? Whether or not you can get the technology in order to implement that project. The effectiveness of it, so how much of an impact does it create on the UNBC community? The return on investment, that relates more also to the long-term sustainability of the project. So this is one times seed funding just so that you can get started. But it's not like we want it to just, happen for 1 year and then the next year it just disappears, right? We want, as part of the sustainability strategy, is to make sure that your project is sustainable and lasts for forever, basically, at UNBC, and makes that impact.
And sorry if I could just expand on that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's seed money. Don't come looking to the Green Grant on an annual basis for a handout to keep it going. Yeah, you need to, further what you said, just, yeah, it needs to be sustainable. It needs to be able to be somehow funding itself and keep it going. And then also, I was going to make one other, you had mentioned about the across the UNBC campus community. We had one recently on their initial elevator pitch from the information they provided. I don't recall the exact number, but it was such a small percentage of the student base that would benefit from it. It was like, well, why would we put all this money into that? So kind of think obviously we'd rather give our money to something that benefits a wider part of the group as opposed to a very small select part of the UNBC community.
Thanks, Leslie. Yeah, and that goes into getting support from the broader UNBC community. So if you can demonstrate that it can support, as many groups as possible by getting support from different UNBC groups, that would be awesome. We can talk about that a bit later when we talk about the application itself. And also the extent of background research. So part of the proposal is you're going to provide some justification on why you think this project will create that impact. And to do so, you might have to do some background research into your project and use evidence and reference to literature to support your claims. All right, so the Green Grant Committee is the committee that's going to evaluate your proposal. So this consists of Leslie Burke, who is here today, David Kloss, who's the Director of Facilities Management and Capital Planning, Dr. Margot Mandy, who's a UNBC faculty, and Sayeda Eman Iftikhar, who is a NUGS president. And the point of contact for the Green Grant is the Sustainability Office. So you can email sustainability@unbc.ca for any inquiries regarding this grant, and also to submit your proposals, you will submit it to sustainability@unbc.ca. All right, some other important information is we have a proposal template available. So it's on the UNBC Sustainability website. So if you go on unbc.ca sustainability and go to Green Fund, it's there. And another important point is you have up to a year to complete the project from the time the funding decision is made. You can ask for an extension, but you'll need to provide some justification for that. Okay, so elements of the application, you'll find this in the proposal template itself, but you will need to provide a project description. So provide a brief description about what your project is about, and a detailed work plan, who is going to do what, right, in the project. The budget is really important. So you're going to ask for funding. You can ask up to $5,000, but it doesn't mean you have to ask for $5,000. It depends on what you want to do. So you need to lay that out very specifically in your budget, what you're going to use that funding for. And also the cash flow schedule. So maybe Leslie, you could talk a bit about that.
Yes. So think about how you intend to get the money. So are you expecting the money to be handed to you up front? Are you expecting to incur the expenses and then get reimbursed? And then think about whom the money is going to go to. You can probably appreciate where we'd be reluctant to hand over, let's say, a $5,000 check in the name of a student. It'd be better if it was going to a club. If we were giving the money to a club, and a club that was actually still active and in good standing, not one that's isn't. And or if there's a faculty member involved, and we could run the money through and the expenses through the faculty members code accounting that they would have set up with the university. So just kind of, if you could think about that, who's this money going to go? How's this money going to flow? That would be great. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
totally. And then public engagement. How are you going to promote your project to the wider community, UNBC and otherwise? So think about that part. Project closure and sustainability. So that's something that's really important. How are you going to keep this project running and be self-sufficient after you use up the funding? And then acknowledgement of the Green Fund. That's also really important. So make sure that you acknowledge the Green Fund and any promotional material that you create. And yes, essentially acknowledge that you got it from the Green Fund. And then sponsors and letters of support. This is optional, but it will make your application stronger. So highly recommended. Because as Leslie mentioned, we want to ensure that your project reaches as many people as possible in the UNBC community. And if you get letters of support from different community members, then that will make it stronger. All right, so some important dates for this fall intake is the preliminary proposals are due Wednesday, October 30th at 11:59 p.m. So you have about a month to get it in. So during that time, just make sure that you have all of those elements that we discussed. But if not, don't worry because once we get your application, we will slot you in for an elevator pitch, and you will have 3 minutes again to provide a brief summary of your project and get feedback from us in order to improve and get your final proposals in, which is due on Friday, November 22nd at 11:59 p.m. So make sure that you mark these dates down on your calendar. Okay, so some past funded projects. Maybe Leslie can talk a little bit about these.
Sure. So just recently, so BAM, the Borrow a Mug program that is run on campus. We initially gave money a number of years ago to get that going, help them purchase some mugs and whatever else they needed. And through, I guess, all sorts of reasons, they needed to get some money again to bump up their inventory. Spoke earlier or mentioned earlier already about making sure your program is sustainable, so you're not coming back to us for handouts. It had been quite a while since they had needed to restock their initial inventory. But again, we addressed it with them. We'll give you some more money, but you do need to figure out a way to make sure that you can sustain your program or continue to sustain your program. This reusable period project. That was one where their initial proposal, it was such a small number based on the money they were asking and what they were going to do with it. It was such a small amount of the population that was actually going to get any product out of it. But they went back and revamped their program. They found different sources to get reusable product from. And so then therefore it was actually a program that could help out a wide variety, a number of people at campus. So we continued on with that one. The Indigenous mural art one is actually a really good example of things that really need to be taken into consideration. It sounds like a great idea. It's going to design an Indigenous mural, put it on a window, and help prevent the birds from hitting it and then dying. But of course, with something like that, well, you just can't go and start putting things on the building. You have to work with facilities, right? Indigenous. So now they're looking at hiring the Indigenous art. They're now looking to hire somebody to do the design. Okay, well, now we have to take into consideration copyright and IP rights with the artist. And we have to, and then have something in writing with the artist as well regarding what they are regarding the copyright and IP, what have you. So yeah, so it gets a little bit more involved than what the one would originally think. Pollinator project, that's a good one on making sure your club is active if you're putting in an application under a club name, and making sure you have your faculty sponsor for that club is on board with what you're doing, and having a plan for how the money's going to roll out and timing as well. You don't want to have your bees and that arriving in the winter or what have you, right? Student focused gardening project. I can't recall a lot of details about that. Nugs Food Bank, I do believe that was one where we provided them not food, but equipment for their program so they could keep it running. Pardon?
It's going well.
Good. Yeah, that's good. And yeah, same with reciprocity. We provided some shelves and stuff so they could keep that program going.
Awesome.
Cool.
Cool.
Great. Awesome. Well, let's see. That's good.
So,
All right. So just some other things if I could share with you to take into consideration. Just have to get back into my system. So letters of support, as was mentioned earlier, if you're doing something with that involves facilities like the campus physically in any way, do be sure that you've engaged the facilities department and they're on board with what you're wanting to do. Same with food services. If you got something involving food services, make sure they're on board with what you're proposing and what have you. Yeah, if you were doing something in the greenhouse, make sure you have indicated and have support from those people as to what you're proposing. So I think it's actually common sense, but maybe something people don't take into consideration. Yeah, we can't just go in and take over or impact the building or operations of another department without having their knowledge and them on board with that. If you make sure you have a business plan and or an operational plan, depending, of course, what your project would be. But yeah, if it's something where you're going to be selling a product, well, what does that whole business plan look like? Or if you want to be renting bikes out, well, how's that going to work? Who's involved? Where is it going to be stored, et cetera, et cetera. So just it's kind of think through all the steps from beginning to end. People. So how's this going to work? The people involved, are you going to be paying people? How would they be paid? If they have to be hired under UNBC, then make sure you have the right rates through HR as to what they would be paid when you put together your budget. Are you relying on volunteers? How are you going to ensure that you will have the volunteers needed to put this through? Is it something that's going to be in the summer when there's less students here? How are you going to have that, have your project resourced with people for that? So yeah, just take into consideration the people resources. Take into consideration timing. We won't fund a project that's already happened. So you have the dates for this one. You know that it's closing on November 22nd.
yes.
So therefore it will, I don't know, I guess we haven't advertised when the decisions are
No.
intended to be made, but take into consideration, you probably won't hear back on your project until, well, you won't hear, until probably sometime in December. So yeah, make sure when you're doing your timeline that you have your project not starting in November or December. And then make sure you have a project where your timing makes sense. We recently did that work. You showed the project there. They did workshops on gardening, but they did them a couple of weeks ago. To my way of thinking, unless it's specifically type of gardening that you do in the fall, it probably would have been more effective to do those workshops in the spring when people then are gung-ho and proceed with the enthusiasm of what they just learned. And then risk management, take into there's a lot of layers to risk management, which most people probably aren't aware of or don't think about. But you know, there's the safety. Is there going to have to be some insurance involved? Are we hiring somebody? Then we got some work safe involved. Then I already mentioned earlier things like copyright and IP. So depending again on your project, there may be some risk management things you need to take into consideration. Again, depending what it is, it may be something where you want to get a letter of support from the risk management department here at the university. And then of course the university does have policies that need to be followed, some of which include procurement, which is my area. So yeah, if it's something that we're going to end up purchasing, the university itself is going to be issuing the check to the vendor, then it's going to have to go through our policies and procedures for that. Leveraging, it doesn't hurt your proposal any if you have can leverage it with funding from another source. So maybe you have somewhere else where there's some other grant money that'll be coming in as well. And then I guess so we kind of talked about in the money part already, the disbursements and accountability. Just again, how do you see the money flowing? And how does that relate to your timeline and yeah, if it'll be who the money will be issued to? Are we paying directly to the person doing the work? Are we paying a person or running it through faculty, or are we running it through a club? So anyhow, if you could take that into consideration, and then again, as mentioned, if you could put in your proposal how you intend to recognize the green grant. Again, depending what your proposal is, that'll vary. So I think that covers that. So thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. Okay, so again, if you need to contact regarding the green grant, you can email sustainability@unbc.ca. That's where you also submit your green grant proposal. There's also my office. If I'm in, feel free to come and chat about your proposal. I will be gone from the 5th to the 30th, but there will be someone who, Sahil, the energy manager, who can also provide some support. WhatsApp. So you can WhatsApp any questions that I can answer very quickly through there. And yeah, so the rest of the time can be for questions. And I see that there's already perhaps a query in the chat here. Okay, so is it possible to include the work we have already done as part of the funding request, or should it be in expenses yet to happen from NBCGSS?
Well, I guess without knowing all the details, we don't generally fund projects that have already happened. It could be a project that has started and now you need money to continue it on. So hopefully that somewhat